Ready?
Always.
So a few months ago I did a video on the Sarah Jane Adventures, and I also said that if that got enough attention then I'd do a follow-up video on the specials. Now that video did get enough attention and I just never got round to making the follow-up video. So today I'm here finally, after all this time, I'm making the follow-up video. So the Sarah Jane Adventures had 3 made episodes in Series 5 which we covered in the last video, and today we're covering the 5 unmade specials for the Sarah Jane Adventures, which, as I'm aware, would have taken place after the first half of Series 5, as the show was quietly suspended because they wanted to pause production so Elizabeth Sladen would recover from treatments. Obviously that didn't happen, otherwise this video would not be being made so many years later on. So without further ado, let's get into it, starting with the 4 Halloween specials, as there were 4 Halloween specials and 1 Christmas special. And the first of them was titled Full Moon. Now this, as I've just said, was the first of 4 Sarah Jane Adventures Halloween specials proposed to air in 2011. But since the death of Elizabeth Sladen, it was never produced. This story would have seen Clyde, Rani, Skye and Luke celebrating and dressing up for Halloween until they eventually encounter the pagan gods Gog and Magog, who were trying to escape an alien spaceship. This one's a classic aliens trapped, need help, must help them kind of story, which we've seen many times before in the Sarah Jane Adventures. I actually quite like it. It's simple, it's elegant. It would have been really nice and basic. And something to note about these 4 Halloween specials, they were all Sarah Jane light. They did not feature Sarah Jane at all. And we have seen this in the Sarah Jane Adventures before, in one of my favourite stories as an adult to watch, Mark of the Berserker. But in that, there's something I didn't like, it's that Sarah Jane came in at the end to save everything, and I don't like that. I didn't like that ending, but still, it was nice for Clyde to get that story, and I've just found a chocolate coin. I'll be eating that after this video. So, all of these specials being Sarah Jane Light would have been fantastic, and I would have loved to seen that as a kid and rewatch as an adult. This premise, like I said, it's nice and simple, nice and basic. I would have loved it, I think. So it's sad that this never got produced. And considering the title is Full Moon, I'm going to assume that someone was dressed up as a werewolf, or there would have been some form of lycanthropy thrown in there as well. Maybe the aliens would have been werewolves or something like that, I don't know. But just based on the title alone. And this story would have been written by Clayton Hickman. So the next story was titled The Station, and obviously this would have been the second of the 4 specials in this, and still would have focused on Clyde, Rani, Skye and Luke. Now this one would have seen Luke, Clyde, Rani and Skye waiting at a rural station, intending to catch a train back to Ealing to attend Gita's Halloween party after the trio stayed with Luke for a few days. The gang would suddenly find themselves transported back to the years 1911 and 1934. And again, this one was also written by Clayton Hickman. We would have needed this. Time travel was something that we barely looked at in the Sarah Jane Adventures. And when I think of time travel, the one that I think, there's 2 stories that come to mind. One of them being the Trickster's second appearance, The Temptation of Sarah Jane Smith. Fantastic story, I love it. I love rewatching that because that cliffhanger with the Trickster was absolutely phenomenal. Now, the other story I didn't like as much as a kid, but love now as an adult, Lost in Time. And I want to know who that shopkeeper is. I still want to know who that shopkeeper is. Ah! Can we have any sort form of bringing back the shopkeeper, Russell T Davies? I know you brought the actor back in Wizards vs. Aliens, but still, we would like to see the character of the shopkeeper and the captain back in the universe, please. The third special is actually strange because this one is an unnamed special. And it would have seen Clyde, Rani, and Sky join Luke in Oxford while Sarah Jane was abroad. This would lead to them investigating a haunting alongside one of Luke's university friends, Caroline. The gang would eventually end up encountering gargoyle-like creatures. Now, reading that, I'm going to come up with my own title for this story, and I'm going to not refer to it at all because weird. But considering it's a haunting and there's gargoyle-like creatures and there's I assume a mansion. There's actually nothing said about the haunting, but let's keep it simple. Let's keep it basic. Let's just call it the haunting. Not a great title, I know. I wanted to come up with a name for the gargoyle-like creatures, but I kept thinking back to Weeping Angels. Anyway, with this story, it's basic, it's simple. I think, replacing Caroline for Sanjay would have been better because then you could have focused on Luke's coming out story as they wanted to do at some point in the show. You could have focused on Luke's feelings for Sanjay, and I think that would have been really nice to include here. But this one again was written by Clayton Hickman. But then we get to the final Halloween special, Night of the Spectre. Now, Night of the Spectre would have been different to the other live broadcasts. It eventually became the only approved Halloween special of the Sarah Jane Adventures, as the previous live specials were later scrapped. This animated adventure would only require a single day of voice recording from Elizabeth Sladen to reduce strain on her as she was still recovering from treatment. Now, this one's fun because this would have seen the return of Alan and Maria Jackson, who last appeared in the story I mentioned earlier, Mark of the Berserker. The story would revolve around Alan getting married again, which leads to Sarah Jane and Luke travelling to West Massachusetts to be reunited with Maria and Alan for the special occasion, as it was the home of Alan's bride, Lauren Proctor. Proctor? Is that the name of the character? Oh, we've got some Doctor Who redacted connection in here. I'm not. Wow. I might do. Hold up. Yo. I didn't actually read this beforehand. I wanted to read it with yous. But if you guys haven't listened to Doctor Who Redacted, then I give it a shot. I enjoy Redacted. I enjoyed listening to it. It's on BBC Sounds. But the protagonist in that is called Cleo Proctor. So fun might be a little bit of a connection here. I'm not sure, but I would love that if there was. Anyway, the day of their wedding would take place on the 1st of November at Ravensfall. Lauren's family would have a generational tradition of getting married in the old white clappered church. The night before the wedding, Luke and Maria would get into the Halloween spirit alongside Sable, who is Lauren's 14-year-old daughter. This story would eventually lead to Sarah Jane, Luke, Maria and Sable encountering an enemy called the Spectre. Now, I like this. I like this a lot, and I would have loved to watch this in live action or animated. I don't really care. Like, having it as the animated one as well, that would have added a bit more depth into the show, and I quite like that. However, I am thinking the animation style would have been similar to that of Dreamland. No, no, thank you. No, thank you. I would not have enjoyed that at all. But there is actually one more story to go into, and that is the Christmas special. Miracle on Bannerman Road was a planned 2011 Christmas special of the Sarah Jane Adventures, but the story would have been loosely based on A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, and it would have seen Sarah Jane Smith being shown the past, present, and future of her life by a mysterious traveller. Here's where it gets fun, because Fourth Doctor actor Tom Baker was briefly considered for this role, preceding his reappearance as the curator in The Day of the Doctor by 3 years. Bringing back Tom Baker would have been huge. This show brought back the Brigadier successfully, so bringing back Tom Baker as well, oh, I would have loved that. But the story would have ended with the 11th Doctor dropping off a baby Sky Smith, saying that he could not explain any more. But this story was cancelled for various reasons, and the entrance of Sky into the Smith household was covered instead by one of the stories completed for Series 5, that one being the premiere, Sky. And that's, yeah, I love this story, not just because I like A Christmas Carol, and A Christmas Carol was the best of Stephen Moffat's Christmas specials, in my opinion. That includes Joy to the World, by the way. Again, as I've said previously, Joy to the World will be talked on a lot more in detail in once Series 2 has released. Well, Series 2 / Season 15. So, yes, I will be talking about that in my rankings video. You have to wait until the middle of the year. Sorry, not sorry. So, yeah. This story, I think, would have been really nice, and it would have been great to see the Fourth Doctor back, even if it wasn't as the Fourth Doctor, just as Tom Baker. I would have loved to see him back. And as a kid, I wouldn't have known who he was. Just saw an adult in my family just get all emotional because they see Tom Baker. Seeing reactions to it now would have been absolutely golden. Yeah. It's really sad that this is the last we've got of what was planned for the Sarah Jane Adventures. Obviously, there's no information on a season 6, which I think would have gone ahead. Oops. There is no information on season 6, which I think would have gone ahead. But that makes sense considering the tragedy of Elizabeth Sladen. And yeah, it does break your heart. But looking back on these stories, looking back on this show, it's brought back a lot of good memories. Talking about different stories, looking into the Sarah Jane Adventures. It is my childhood. It was my childhood. However, looking at the site, the TARDIS Wiki, where I've found all this information, there is a list of different unproduced stories for both Doctor Who and its spin-offs, as well as comics and audios and things like that. And I might have a look at them and do it in a video and talk about them, since there's loads for different Doctors. We've got the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and then even some for the 9th. There's loads for the 8th Doctor, by the way. Loads, and I want to look at them all. And we've got one for the 9th Doctor, which we know as called Pompeii. Some of them do, so we can't look at some of them, so they don't have any entries in that, but we can guesstimate on some of them. There's a couple for the 10th Doctor, two for the 11th, but one of them we already know, and I think the other one might go to Sarah Jane Adventures again. We've got some for the 12th, and then none for the 13th except a prose, which I do also want to have a look at. So if you guys do want to see any of those, let us know, comments. I know this is a bit of a shorter one, especially a lot shorter than the last one, and well, we have a lot less information on these stories, which is obviously why. But it has been great looking back at all of these. So if you do want to see more of these, let me know. Next week, I've no idea what's going to happen, but we will figure it out. And that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you later. Bye.